So today we're talking about something that's simultaneously obvious and deeply, cosmically stupid. And I say that with full compassion, I promise. We're talking about why so many men have completely convinced themselves that no woman is attracted to them, ever, under any circumstances, including circumstances where the woman in question is actively on fire for them in a way that would be visible from space. This is a thing that happens. It happens a lot. And the reasons for it are actually logical, which is the annoying part, because you can walk through the whole chain of thinking and go, okay, yes, I see how you got here. And then also go, but buddy. Anyway, let's get into it. So the first thing you need to understand is the asymmetric embarrassment problem, which I'm naming right now. Don't look it up, I made that up, but it's real. Here's the deal. If a guy thinks a woman is into him and he's wrong, he misread her being friendly as her being interested. That is, socially, a nightmare. That is a story she tells her friends. That is him being the guy who thought I liked him at every brunch for the next 18 months. The humiliation is public, documented, and has a runtime. It follows him. Now flip it. If a guy thinks a woman is not into him and he's wrong, she actually likes him and he just didn't notice, what happens? Nothing. Nothing happens. She maybe moves on, he never finds out. There is no social consequence, no story, no brunch. He goes home, watches something, falls asleep, and the universe gives him zero feedback about the error he just made. So you've got one outcome that costs you something and one outcome that costs you nothing. And the human brain, which is a consequence avoidance machine wearing a meat suit, looks at those two options and goes, I'll take the safe one, thanks. And just like that, every ambiguous signal gets filed under probably not. Not because the evidence points there, because it's safer to land there. Is this rational? Technically, yes. Is it doing any favors to anyone involved? Absolutely not. But here we are. Now let's add the second ingredient, which is the romantic validation gap. And this one, I actually feel bad about, because it's not funny, it's just sad. We'll get back to being funny in a second. Girls grow up, generally, on average. There are exceptions. I'm not doing a dissertation. Girls grow up receiving direct, explicit compliments about their appearance and personality from a pretty young age. Family members, friends, strangers in stores, boys at school, whatever. The feedback loop is active. They know what it looks like when someone is interested because they've seen the pattern before and have data to compare against. Boys, on the other hand, and again, generally, I'm not making universal claims, settle down. Boys grow up getting basically none of that. The romantic and physical validation pipeline for young men is largely turned off. Nobody walks up to a 15-year-old boy and says, hey, you're really attractive and I enjoy your presence. That doesn't happen. If it does happen, it's weird. Society has decided that's weird. So what you get is a man who hits adulthood with essentially zero baseline data for what it looks and feels like when someone is attracted to him. None. His sample size is empty. He has no reference point, which means when attraction does show up, when it's right there, clear as day, his brain doesn't go, oh, I recognize this. His brain goes, this is new and unfamiliar and possibly I am misunderstanding it. Because he has misunderstood it before. Because everyone does. But he has no library of correct readings to counterbalance the incorrect ones. So by default, attraction feels unlikely. Not because it is. Because he's never been trained to expect it. That's not stupidity. That's just a missing calibration that nobody told him he needed. Anyway, moving on. Third ingredient, the creep shadow, which is what I'm calling the fear of being seen as a creep. Being overconfident, being socially unaware, coming on too strong, reading the room wrong, being that guy. And here's the thing, this fear is not irrational. Actually, wait, I have a problem with this, because the entire reason this fear exists is that there's a very real and very documented category of man who does do all those things and does not clock it and makes people uncomfortable and ruins situations. That guy is real. He exists. And the genuinely socially aware men, the ones who would never actually be creepy, have absorbed the lesson so hard that they now apply it preemptively to every situation, including situations where it does not apply at all. So you've got men who are self-aware enough to worry about coming across as presumptuous, which is a good trait, actually. And that same self-awareness is now being weaponized against them by their own brain, which is saying, what if you're wrong? What if she's just being nice? What if you say something and it turns out she wasn't interested and now you're creep guy, you don't want to be creep guy? And the answer to you don't want to be creep guy is apparently assume the worst, wait for overwhelming proof, do nothing in the meantime. Which brings us to the fourth ingredient, the proof threshold problem. This one is really something, because you'd think, okay, even if all the above is true, even if the default setting is assume no interest, at some point, clear enough signals would override it. At some point, the evidence would accumulate and the man in question would go, okay, fine, she's into me, right? Yeah, no. What actually happens is the threshold for overwhelming proof keeps moving. She smiled at you, could be friendly, she texted you first, she texts everyone, she laughed at your jokes, she's just nice, she's laughing at all your jokes, touching your arm, making prolonged eye contact, and finding reasons to extend every conversation. Okay, but does she do that with everyone? Wait, hold on. Does she do that with everyone? Has he checked? Has he conducted a longitudinal observational study across her full social network to rule out the possibility that she is simply a universally warm and charming person, and therefore her warmth toward him specifically means nothing? No, he has not, but his brain has decided that she might, and that's enough to tank the whole reading, which means functionally, the only signal that would qualify as sufficient proof is her saying, with her mouth, out loud, in plain language, in front of witnesses, I am attracted to you and would like to pursue something with you. Which, coincidentally, is not how most attraction gets communicated, because most people, including women, also don't want to be rejected and are also reading signals else, and also waiting for the other person to indicate interest first. So what you've got is two people, both interested, both waiting for proof, neither providing enough proof, both walking away thinking the other person wasn't into them. It's a standoff. It's the stupidest standoff in human history, and it happens every day. And look, I get it. I get the whole architecture of why this happens. The humiliation math makes sense. The validation gap is real. The creep paranoia is a reasonable response to a real social dynamic. The proof threshold is a defensive mechanism. None of these things came from nowhere. But here's the thing. Here's what the whole system is actually producing. Men who are not missing interest. Men who are just reflexively discounting it before it can register. Not because the evidence isn't there, because the default has been set so aggressively to unlikely that the evidence has to fight uphill against a conclusion that was already made. And the conclusion was made not from actual data about this specific person in this specific situation. It was made from one embarrassing misread 3 years ago, a childhood with no romantic feedback, a cultural warning about overconfidence, and a brain that decided safety beats accuracy. That's the whole mechanism. It's not complicated. It's just layered, and every layer felt reasonable in the moment it was installed. Doesn't make it correct, doesn't make it useful, just makes it understandable. Whatever. That's the breakdown. Asymmetric embarrassment, 0, validation baseline, creep shadow, moving proof threshold. 4 things, that's all it is. 4 things combining into a man who is standing in front of someone who genuinely likes him and has completely, logically, incorrectly talked himself out of noticing it. 4 missed connections out of a theoretically preventable situation. Would not recommend. Someone tell these guys.